going on, everybody? Gunnar here. Yeah, opener for Pike's about 2 weeks away. Depends on where you are, obviously. It might already be open, but I thought we'd tie a bigger fly today and get into some Pike action. So we got a 2/0 Attitude streamer in the back, a 4/0 Attitude Extra up front. It's going to be a flash-tailed variation of the Big Booty Deceiver. And yeah, we'll just jump right into it, because why not? So, the tail is going to be 4 strands of Magnum flash boom, Magnum holographic flash. And I'm just going to measure this out here. Say, okay, that's probably 6 inches, double that over, and cut that off. And then I'm going to take my excess trimmings and I'm going to put that right at the halfway point. So I kind of already have this taper, right? I kind of have like a 40-60 taper to it. And then I'm just going to accentuate that, pull these ones down a little further. And then we're just going to tie that in 50-50. That's going to be the base of our tail. Now to get a little bit more movement, I'm going to add standard Flashaboo, just regular holographic Flashaboo. That way we have different diameters, different lengths, and different thicknesses all moving kind of at different times, right? These are all going to tend to have the same kind of properties in the water because it's all the same width, thickness, and size. So just having 2 different size Flashaboos is just going to give you a little bit more movement and a little bit more flash. I'd say it's probably 20 fibers. But I'm going to put a relatively big taper into this. Probably, I'd say that's 3 inches worth of taper to try to bleed the fibers into what we already have going on. Now the Flashaboo on its own is going to have a tendency to want to move all around, right? And it can get tangled up under this hook. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to secure all this with glue just to help protect that thread. And then we're going to encapsulate this with 1 spin of bucktail. So we're just going to do some long fibered bucktail. I think I would normally do tip hair, but this tip hair is a little short, so we're going to do some longer kind of mid-range hair, and we're just going to do 1 spin to help encapsulate that. Put a little bulk back here. It's just going to be straight tied, and it's going to stop that flash boot from wrapping around and getting in the way of stuff. Alright, so now that's good to go, and what I did is I just came about a full centimeter in front of where I tied that bucktail in. I got all my butts tied down, and we're going to put a layer of Steve Ferrar Flash Blend over this entire back half of the fly. It's a nice kind of flashy, translucent synthetic material. It's also going to help support this flash. It's also going to help thicken up the back because that flash is, it's all going to kind of stick together and be relatively thin diameter. So it's just going to put some bulk of the fly kind of rearward off this wing of bucktail. So that's what's going on. I'm going to try to do it just 50-50. I didn't really increase the taper at all. It's just kind of tapered from how I pulled it out of the package, which is fine. So now we have a nice kind of thicker tailing portion. So far the back half's all synthetic except for that 1 small stack of bucktail. It's going to be nice and lightweight. And again, that SF blend's really going to help that Flashaboo not to wrap around stuff and get moved around. So I'm going to coat this back half now with some glue, leave the shank bare, and then we're going to do another spin of bucktail. Actually, we're going to stack white bottom, olive top. So far so good. So we got some olive on top, we got some white on the bottom. I just stacked it, put my thumb into it to kind of get it off the top and move them around onto the side so it's nice and hemisphered and nice and round. Cinch that down, trim the butts, and tied all the butts in. I'm going to put a little bit of flash top and bottom, just straight holographic. I'm probably going to do olive top, silver bottom, and then I'm going to put 2 saddle feather wings up top to kind of give it some barring, almost like a baby bass, kind of dirty, dark back baitfish style. So, booyah. Now I don't want these to be too long, so I'm just kind of measuring them off my bucktail and say I'm going to put taper into that. So I'm cutting off a full inch. Then we'll give those about 2 inches of taper. I'm going to tie it in about 60-40. Spread that around with my thumb, get a good little coating, cinch that down. So I put those 2 saddle feathers right on top, kind of like my 1/8 and your 1/8, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that makes sense. And then we're just going to do kind of a bulleted reverse tied craft fur stack right up top. It's not a true olive. Again, this is kind of like a dirtier version. I think it's a gray olive craft fur. Yeah, just going to tie it in right here at the eye, and then we're going to articulate this bad boy. Now that is the tail, and it's a pike fly probably in its own right. It's probably 6.5, 7 inches long. Flash blue bucktail and craft fur. You could fish that. We're going to put a 4/0 up front. We're just going to articulate it with the usual. It's 40-pound wire, just 0.024 inch nylon coated stainless steel bead-along wire, single bead. So as I'm tying this in, I just want to say first I'm using 100 denier GSP. It's a Vivus gel spun thread, right? If you're looking for kind of a one thing does it all, this would be my go-to. It's extremely durable, strong, crazy strong. But it's a very slick thread. And if you're worried about these wires getting pulled out, feel free to double it through the eye. I'm not worried about it. And the reason why I stopped to talk, is I'm going to show you why. About every 10 wraps or so, I do a straight pull, right? So my bobbin's not at an angle, and it's not scoring anything or getting caught on metal. It's just a straight line to the thread. I'm doing a straight pull down, and this thread is so strong that you'll see it all move around, and you can see it dig in to the nylon coating from the wire. And every time it digs into that nylon coating, it's like an anchor point that's not going to allow that wire to slip or move at all. And I do it usually in one direction. So I just did it going back, and now I'll do it on the way back up to the front. So if you're worried about this ever getting pulled out, having a really, really strong thread like this allows you to compromise the coating of the wire, and it increases your grip so that those wires will never get pulled out. And this, I mean, it'll break eventually. Like if you catch, 50 or 60 fish on this thing, it'll break. The wire will give right here at the base of the thread, and the wires will snap before any of this ever gets pulled out. So, thought I'd throw that in there. So what we're about to do is we're just going to kind of throw in kind of a connection wing to blend the 2 halves of the fly together, really, and it's just bucktail. And I was just going to show you in real time lashing down the bucktail on top and the bottom. So I'm just going to kind of just measure this out. This is a good spacing. This spacing between my previous stack and my current stack is going to give me the taper that I want. And I don't really need to add a lot of bulk, because what we're going to do is we're going to do a hidden bulkhead over 1/8 inch body tubing for the head of this fly. So I'm just going to straight tie this. I'm going to straighten up my butts, reel up on the bobbin, and 2 vertical wraps, I guess 3. I'm kind of going to pinch right on the other side of the hook and just flare that a little bit so that it stays put when I tie in my white stack. Now I typically measure my white off my olive, and I like the top to air a little bit longer. Even if you can. If you can do even, go even, but I like the top of the fly to always be slightly longer than the bottom of the fly. Again, I'm just going to even these up, and I already cleaned them out. I'm just going to pull this down nice and slow on either side of the hook. And then catch it. Again, 3 wraps, pinching on the side so it can't rotate, and flaring that hair. Now I'm going to trim off all these butts as close as I can. And then I'm going to shove my thumb into those stacks to kind of help distribute them. So they're not so top and bottom oriented, but they kind of flare off to the sides a bit. And then I'm going to walk my thread down these butts, and about every 5 wraps I'm going to do a straight pull down to tighten all the slack out of my thread. And what you'll see is you get a nice kind of flat base. It's kind of just a nice flat little thread base up there that you can glue and secure all that bucktail and kind of protect that tie-in point so that it won't give way. And then we're actually done with that, and we're going to wrap up real quick and measure off an 8.5 mast. You can feel free to upgrade that to a number 10 if you want. But I'm going to put an 1/8 inch body tubing. Now when you tie in the 1/8 inch, it doesn't really extend too far forward past where you tie it in. So I just want to know where this mast is going to sit, and I want those sides to just kind of pinch that mask so you get a nice vertical squeeze to the front of the fly, and you get that jerk bait action, because this 4 Attitude Extra is like a triple thick wire hook. It's extremely heavy, and this is going to help keel that fly. That large gap, the 4.0, and the thick wire underneath is going to help keel that fly. And these masts are slightly vertically displaced, and they pinch stuff really well. So when you put the 1/8 inch body tubing in here, it's going to fill the mask, and then the mask is going to pinch it. So you get this kind of really tall but narrow bait. It's tall, it'll be tall, but it'll be narrow, and it'll dig left and right with that heavy keel on the hook. So we're going to put in some 1/8 inch body tubing right here, and then I'll start talking again. Alright, so earlier I mentioned doing a hidden bulkhead. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to reverse tie bucktail, but I'm going to leave the butts on long enough that they're flared by this body tubing, so that we have this kind of circular disc of bucktail butts behind our bucktail head to help push water, give the fly a little bit of action, and it's just going to increase your forward density of material. So that's basically all we're going to do. We're going to reverse tie bucktail, but we're going to leave the butts in, and we're going to try to do olive over white. It's a little tricky with the body tubing instead of just a normal reverse tie, but we'll make it happen. So, yep. Now, no matter how hard you try, you're not going to be able to reverse this with thread wraps, right? You need the mask, because the mask is going to go over top of the body tubing just a little bit, and that's what's going to set your angle. So the mask is what is setting your angle, which is why I measured off the mask where I was going to put my body tubing, right? If you try to reverse it with your thread, basically the best you'll be able to do is to get it vertical. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just trying to get it as close to vertical as possible, and then I'm just going to secure it with a hair clip while I put in the rest of my materials. And then at the end, I'm going to shove that mask over there and hope everything turns out good. We're going to hope. No, it's pretty consistent, or else I wouldn't be screwing around with all this stuff. But what's the next step? Flash blue. We'll do flash blue. Yep. I think it's 6 strands. We're going to do 6 or 7 strands of olive on top, silver on the bottom, same as before. Tying them in 60-40 so that we have some nice short fibers up in the front, and we're going to blend those fibers off into the back. And then we're going to throw 3 saddle feathers to match our 2. So these are on the 8s. We're going to do quarters. Yeah, we're just going to do the quarters. 3 quarters. These are on the 8s, so you have 5 feathers, and they're going to blend back, not all the way, but probably to this kind of like 3/4 point, 66%ish, 70%ish. That's what we'll do. I'm going to hit each side with 1 strand 50-50 double back lateral scale. This is the micro. I think it's 1/64 inch, which I believe only comes in opal, which is perfect for our big bait fish. Big dirty baby bass. So just lashing those guys down, 1 on a side, and then we're going to put in a reverse tie craft fur collar. Again, we're using that kind of gray olive up on top, and I'm just gonna lay this right up on top. Catch that. You notice I haven't taken my fingers off it yet, so I can pry these forward and not catch any of my materials back there. Now something, if you're using, I'm using a hair scissor, and hair scissors are serrated, and that serration is extremely grippy on materials, and when you have craft fur tied in loosely like that and you go to cut it, you'll see your hair scissors will grip that craft fur and it'll try to pull it out away from your thread wraps. And the way to avoid pulling it out from your thread wraps is to simply draw on your scissors as you cut. That'll help that serration cut instead of dig in and grab, and you'll get a nice clean cut close to the material. So I just threw in a whip finish. Make sure that's all good to go. Open that up. And then here's the moment of truth. So I got these guys wet and dried and looking snazzy. So yeah, flash tail, Big Booty Deceiver variation with that hidden bulkhead to push some more water, get a nice steep angle, carry the bulk through the fly. Check it out. Hopefully they treat you well if you tie some or buy some, whatever your preference is, you know. But take them out, pike fishing, big smallies, musky, striper, I don't know what you're fishing for, predator, some big nasty predator somewhere. So yeah, thanks for watching, hope you have a good day.